So I'd like to talk about the duh and the of differentiation. So usually when we think about infographics, which is what we needed to do as part of our assignment this week, we expect flashy with lots of data and tons of fancy images, but it's really just a T-chart with the duh of differentiation and the of differentiation, according to me, based on what I got out of the readings and the infographic example that I found. I want to start with the duh of differentiation. The things that I felt like were kind of heavy-handed or, kept cropping up and were things that we just naturally do as experienced educators was the idea that things centered around the students. Well, of course, that totally makes sense. You're centered or focused on the students. And also that data and assessment were also certainly important components of differentiation. Well, of course. And then obviously was the statement that effective lessons were engaging, interesting, and relevant. So engaging, interesting, and relevant. Of course. Certainly any lesson that's going to be effective is going to be engaging, interesting, and relevant to your students, and it's going to be based on assessments and data. Otherwise, it's not going to be all that effective. And then lastly, the thing that sort of tied it all together, or what our reading sort of danced around, was the zone of proximal development, ZPD, where you wanted to keep things right in that area of engagement for students, where it wasn't so low that they were bored, or it wasn't so far above what they were learning that they just spent all their time feeling really confused. So that's sort of the duh, or the things that came out of the reading that most of us tend to be pretty familiar with. That you may have forgotten, or you gotta go, oh yeah, or right on, or just, that makes sense. Some of the things that seem to affect, maybe I had forgotten, or just sort of was like, yeah, right on. So those tended to be the idea of fluid and flexible groupings, which is something that's near and dear to my heart, because I'm one of those cooperative learner folks who really wants to see students getting together in groups, working together in a bunch of different ways, bunch of different groupings, and that we don't want things to be, leveled ability groups where all the, as they said, buzzards and cardinals and blue jays or whatever, but we want those heterogeneous groups rather than more homogeneous groups. The other thing that I had to keep in mind and was reminded of was that differentiation is not individualization. So it's not individualized learning, really. It's more about larger groups, and it is about choice, which is something that, naturally or inherently I knew, but never really overtly stated. And so focusing on the idea of it being choice and not individualized learning, and thinking about those fluid groups, were important ideas to me. And then also the idea that you're changing the nature of the lesson, but not necessarily the quantity of an assignment. So it's changing nature rather than quantity, as in you're not assigning more of the same, but you're actually changing the nature of the assignment. So that's what I have is that ZPD, zone of proximal development, really is addressed by all of these sorts of items, that it's student-centered, uses data and assessments, and the lessons are engaging, interesting, and relevant. Of course. And then the was thinking about fluid and mixed groupings, remembering that differentiation is not individualization. Differentiation offers choice and changes the nature of a product or lesson or assignment rather than quantity. Final thoughts, really, I guess the biggest thing that I know I have to watch is to make sure that I'm not focused on individualization, because I tend to do that. And so that's one thing that I know I'm going to have to pay attention to when I think about lesson plan writing or for our upcoming lesson plan assignment, is that differentiation is not individualization. It does offer choice and changes the nature of the assignment. Certainly the bigger ideas of what you change, content, process, and product, all of these ideas affect those things, but for me, I'm going to have to make sure that I'm not focused on individualization. I am focused on choice and the nature of the assignment itself. So there we go. All folks, thanks for watching.